We have 8 different folks today, some representing the livestock markets, purebred breeders, commercial cow-calf, some fourth-generation cattle producers, also some larger feeders, and it really ranges from what I'd call an average producer in the state of Missouri to some of the larger producers that are represented. We appreciate each and every one of them. The only one that I really can't control is my boss, Glenn Cope, the chairman of the board for the Beef Industry Council. And I told Sarah Alsager, I said, if he gets very lengthy, you're going to have to shut him off, not me. So I appreciate everyone here. Instead of just going down my list, 1 through 8, we're going to start down here with Justin, and we're just going to move straight across, and we'll end with Bob here on the end. So get your questions ready, because I think they're going to be a great group of people to listen to. Thank you.
All right, thank you. My name's Justin Angel. My family is from Centralia. We've been in the cattle business. I would be the third generation in that area. Part of what I have, myself, my family, we background cattle and then we feed cattle, and have fed cattle in Western feed yards for almost 40 years. The other hat that I wear that takes up most of my time and is the true love of my life is my family has run livestock auctions in the state of Missouri since about 1948. I am the third generation. I'm here with my daughter Savannah. She will be the fourth generation that'll be entering that business. I would like to, I just want to express my appreciation to the Department of Agriculture for putting this on. This is, to be honest with you, it's a whole lot better than I thought it was going to be. The quality of the speakers and the quality of the people in the room, and just the range and the diversity of thought that is going into this program, I'm very impressed. And I'm glad that there's nothing's already been set, nothing's already been decided, that we're just opening up a discussion and a dialogue between all the facets of the industry. One thing that I would like to comment on is, if this meeting and the governor, if his aim is to try and increase the value of the cattle business in the state of Missouri, I can see where a lot of this is headed towards a larger segment, larger producers, how they would benefit from feeding cattle. I don't want in my business, in the livestock auction business, most of my customers, and they'd be in the, we would have probably 15,000 customers in our database. I'm going to say that 80% of those people or more would have 40 cows or less. As far as what I think that we can do for the small guys, I don't want them to be forgotten in this debate. We talk about the quality of cattle and quality beef, and I don't want to be a contrarian, but what some people think quality beef is and what I think quality beef is might be two entirely different things. And the one example I'll give is, if you've got 25 cows or 10 cows, they might be the best cows in the state of Missouri, but very few of my customers are interested in feeding cattle, but most of them are interested in raising very good cattle and the genetics. But as long as we sell cattle by the pound, and most of the producers that I serve sell cattle by the pound, I don't think that we can lose. I don't want to forget the little guys that are going to sell their cattle by the pound. And so I'm not saying that quality, I want to have a tender choice steak just as well as the next guy. But when it comes to the little guys that are going to use the livestock markets, those are the people that I'm concerned with. And I wanted to be positive, so I came up with 5 things that I thought that we ought to think about as a group and as the Department of Ag. If we're going to increase the value of the cattle business in the state of Missouri, I would like to somehow do it by increasing the sheer volume and the sheer number of cows in the state. As I drive through the state, whether it's north, south, east, or west, one thing that I see over and over is how many acres we actually waste. How many acres of grass, I'm talking about building fence around stock fields and draws. You can't hardly sell a bale of hay because there's so much of it. So I think there's a real, that might be the easiest thing we can do. And I don't know if that's a program to maybe help young people build fences, maybe some kind of cost share program, water, all the things that we've started but not really put a lot of emphasis in. Second thing, addresses the same thing, building fences. Some of this marginal crop ground, it should never have been plowed up, but the economics of $15 soybeans, it's plowed up. The thing that I hate to see is to drive down the road and see a 3-foot gully in a hill in a soybean field that should never have been plowed. But it's going to continue to be plowed because it would cost $100 to $150 to fence and to reseed in the grass. Third thing, real simple in my mind, we are at an economic disadvantage in this state because the weight limits on trucks hauling livestock is 80,000 pounds when every state around us is 85,000. That's a stroke of a pen. We ought to be on par with every other state that surrounds us, okay? 85,000 pounds. If we're going to talk about building plants, and I was so glad to hear that the feasibility study that's being done also includes cow slaughter. If we want to include everybody in this state in something that's economically beneficial, we export. We've talked a lot about exporting feeder cattle and exporting, letting the fat cattle be fed somewhere else. If we have, 1 million cows in this state, every producer, on the average, roughly, will sell 10% of their cows every year in a cull cow situation. All those cows are exported, and somewhere along the line, the trucking on those cows per head is somewhere between $40 and $80 per head to truck them to a cow plant that might be as far away as Milwaukee or Omaha. Kill bulls from Boonville, Missouri, go to Texas. So I'm glad that was brought up and will be addressed in the feasibility study. And finally, just, we talk about risk management. I know Joe Abbott addressed this a little bit. The best program that we have available, or one of the best, is the LRP, Livestock Revenue Protection, I think is what that stands for. The LRP program, initially it was pretty inexpensive, and it subsidized about 11%, which Joe addressed. I'm not a very big subsidy guy at all. I don't think, generally speaking, cattle people are subsidy-driven producers. But if we're talking about economic development in this state, if we're talking about an LRP program that charges us $40 to $80 a head to protect the revenue of our cattle, where does that money go? And I don't know. I don't think it goes to anybody in this room. I don't think it goes to anybody in this state. I would say it goes to Chicago or New York or someplace further away than that. So as we progress and we ask questions, I don't want to open up a lot of a big can of worms, but those are just 5 suggestions that I would have right away, and I'll yield the rest of my time if I have any. Frank?
Thank you. I'm Frank Barnitz. I'm from Lake Spring, Missouri, south central Missouri. We're a diversified cattle operation, beef producers, cow calf. We background calves. We have commodity feed business as well. We've taken on the responsibility of growing calves for other people and doing that under a agreement of a yardage basis, so similar to what a feeding industry would be. I'm the 5th generation. My girls are the 6th generation to farm on that ground. Each generation has kind of changed the way they do business there. My dad, he used to raise hogs. That was what kind of paid the bills. So I moved away from that and went into the backgrounding side of it. So we've all made changes in our operation as we've went along. And I think that's part of what's been talked about here, and kind of a key to this is that we all look at what we have available to us, and we use the tools that are in front of us, and we use those things to make our decisions and make life better for each of us. I've taken on some of those things using hedges and using futures. using some price protection methods, and then working with other producers and trying to introduce those to those types of ideas as well. Finding feed products that work better than oak sprouts, and trying to make those. And Monty, if you can come up with something that lets those cattle gain better on oak sprouts, then all of South Central would do better. But we take on all those things. We've used the commodities that are available here locally in the state. We've tried to use products that are co-products to our ethanol and our biodiesel plants to try to make a efficient, good feed product for those. And what we found is with the genetic selections from our own herd and working with those feed products, we've been able to increase the value of those cattle. We started maintaining cattle then, feeding them here, backgrounding them here, and then sending them either north into Iowa, west into Nebraska, Kansas, some cattle into Texas, retaining ownership on those calves, seeing what the genetic potential that we were putting into those calves was, and then trying to reap that benefit. That gave us a really good idea after the first few bunches of cattle of which direction that we needed to go to add value to those. We made those genetic selections to change that, and then we've gone ahead and used those selections to increase our choice, our percent choice, increase our yield grades to 3s and better, and made vast improvements on that, which has also helped us in our bottom line. We've also looked at what it is that's those tools that are available to us through the different things, the government, the LRPs here in Missouri, something that everyone has available to them right now, but it's not being utilized fully, is the beef quality tax credits. Not many people know about those. I think if we advertise those and work with those a little bit more people could take advantage of that. But that means a minimum, if you follow the guidelines, it means a minimum of $20 a head back to the producers. So I think that's, if we take all of these things that are in front of us and our tools that we have, the tools in the toolbox, pick the ones that best work for us, utilize those to the highest potential, I think that the bottom line all works better. Now, we've talked a lot today, with the panels about the getting to the end point of a packing facility, but there's a lot of steps that go in between that of a cow-calf producer and having a calf in the state and getting to that final product of a finished beef. And part of that is growing that calf in this state and maintaining them here. I think that the markets of the state are a very, very important portion of this entire segment too. Being sure that those livestock markets set some figures of what value is, so that producers know what the true value of their cattle are at any certain stage. I also think that by having them available in marketing and working with them with whatever size cattle it is, a lot of these guys, they have different markets to send these cattle to. I know I've got feeders, feedlots that want cattle weighing 750 pounds. I got feedlots that are wanting cattle weighing 900 pounds. So I think that they can work really closely with you in getting those direct marketed as well, based on the weights that you're growing your calves. If you're used to selling 350-pound calves so you can go to the coffee shop and brag about the highest priced calf at the market that day, that's different than the system that I'm under. But if that's what you like to do, then more power to you. Somebody else is going to make value out of that. I think that value needs to stay here in the state of Missouri.
Hi, I'm Jim McCann. I'm immediate past president of Missouri Cattlemen. Kind of the neat part about being here today is I probably spent the weekend with better than 20% of you because we just had our convention. One of the things, seriously, I had a list long as your arm about things I wanted to talk about. I had to wad it up just before I came up here because everything on that list had pretty much been covered. One thing I think that we're overlooking is thanking the governor, Department of Ag, for allowing us this opportunity to make this happen. The next step to that is let's continue this. This is an important step on that ladder. If we all stay together, we're talking to each other, we're exchanging information, it's going to make it easier on all of us. That will keep us informed on what's available. I see people making notes pretty regularly about, I didn't know that, and they wrote it down. You learn something by being here. What would really be neat if next year, when they decide to have another one of these, if they had to have a room 3 times this size in order to get everybody in here. That would prove that it's worthwhile. I know it's worthwhile. The people up here know it's worthwhile. And you guys out there are sitting out there knowing it's worthwhile. Go tell somebody. Thank the Department of Ag. Send a note to the governor. Thank you for making this happen. This is the neat part of it, guys. We have yet to harvest what the real final product is going to come from us being here. That's where the real rewards are going to be. We need to continue this and pay attention to what's going on. There are so many of you sitting out there that may not be a member of a commodity group. You know what? You need to be. Because that information gets passed on at those commodity group meetings that keep people informed. That's what we're for. That's what we do. Help us, help you. I'd love to know every one of you, I mean personally, so I could say, hey, if you need something, call me. Well, that still goes, even though I don't know you. My number's out there and available. If you need something that Cattlemen's Organization can help you with, call us. If we don't know you need help, how can we help you? There's an untold wealth of information out there that we can't cover right here. But if you get a hold of your Cattlemen's Organization, they can help you cover a lot of that. I don't want to take up a bunch of your time, but if you got some questions, I'll try to answer them.
Hi, my name is Nick Hammond. I'm with Circle A Angus. We market seed stock, have a sizable commercial cow-calf operation, and a 5,000 head feedlot in Huntsville, Missouri. I guess Dr. Sexton mentioned earlier, there's a reason a lot of cattle are not fed in Missouri. It's hot in the summer, it's cold in the winter, and it's muddy in between. So we decided to put our feedlot under roof. I think that's one of the opportunities that we have here in Missouri. We bed those cattle on sawdust. We've shown that system to be an animal-friendly, environmentally friendly, neighbor-friendly way to finish beef here in Missouri, and I think it's something that could be duplicated by a lot of other people throughout the state and work out well for them. Another opportunity we have is you drive around northern Missouri, especially this year, there are piles and bags of corn laying in fields. We have corn in Missouri, we have ethanol plants, we have a lot of co-products, so the resources are here to keep those products in Missouri and finish cattle here in Missouri. I've been on about 700 cattle operations in over 40 states and 3 countries, and I can attest to the fact that Missouri has very high quality cattle. If you want to define that as high growth cattle, healthy cattle, high quality grading cattle, I don't care. Our cattle are way, way above average, and we need to find a way to capitalize on that. Another thing we got going for us right now is consumers want to know where their product is coming from. They want to put a face with that product. They want to know that that product is local. I would love to have the opportunity to market Circle A beef in Missouri and show them a picture of our feedlot and show them a picture of our family farm producers that make that beef product and say, this is where your product comes from. And I think consumers would eat that up. We've looked for that opportunity to keep those cattle harvested here in Missouri. Currently, they're going to Kansas. I would love not to put them on a truck and drive them 500 miles. I would love to keep them in Missouri and market that product in Missouri. I think there's demand for it. To find that harvest space is difficult right now. There's also a lot of challenges with what we've been talking about. We heard earlier today, we already have excess kill capacity. Medium-sized packing plants tend to fail. Those, in my mind, are two very big things to get around in terms of building a packing plant in Missouri. Who's going to feed these cattle? Are there really a lot of people in this audience or in this state that want to feed cattle that are hindered because they don't have a packing plant within 100 miles or because of regulations? I don't know that that's necessarily the case. It used to be farmer feeders who fed the cattle. Those farmer feeders have tore up their fences. They've tore out their feedlots. They want it to add value to their grain. Grain's a highly volatile commodity. We fed cattle when grain was $7 a bushel. It wasn't fun and it wasn't profitable. So to tell you to go do that, that's a scary proposition. It also takes a big shift in risk and a shift in cash flow. Most of our customers, they run 1 or 2 bulls. They've got 30 to 60 cows. They don't want to shift in their risk or cash flow. They don't want to feed cattle. So who is going to feed these cattle? And are there hindrances now that are in our way that we can lift? So what will it take to feed more cattle in Missouri? I think the opportunities already exist. We're doing it. There's other people doing it. If you want to do it, you can be out there doing it. Obviously, regulations can be maybe a small challenge, but they're not impossible. They're not insurmountable. We got through it. I guess what I'd say is we have to maintain our right to farm and ranch in Missouri, and we have to just be sure that we don't pass laws that hinder us from doing so. And I think we've done that here recently, and I think we need to continue to do that. You know, economic incentives are always the strongest stimulator. If we pass laws that provide tax incentives, tax credits, offer low-interest loans to feeding operations, assistance with risk management, those things are going to get us started, but they're not going to keep people in business. People are going to keep people in business. So we have to have people who have the desire to feed cattle before we worry about how we're going to incentivize them to do so. So we can incentivize startups and we can throw some money at it, but unless that's what they want to do and what they know how to do, it's not going to last very long. What Missouri does know how to do is cow-calf. That's why we're number 2 in the country. We're suited for it. We want to do it. So if we want to focus on expanding the beef industry in Missouri, maybe that's where we need to focus our efforts. There's a lot of grass, like Justin said, there's a lot of grass out there not being utilized. Maybe we should subsidize putting some of this marginal crop ground back into pasture. Maybe we should look at improving our grass and grazing management techniques. That's what we're doing a lot at home at Circle A now. And we're going to run a lot more cattle on the same amount of land. And there's a lot of improvement that can be made on these fescue pastures so that we can run more cattle in Missouri. And that's how we can produce more pounds of product right away. And I guess my final thought is if there's a market, if there's a demand, if there's a dollar to be made, the entrepreneurs will find it. So as an industry and as a government, let's be sure we're minimizing the roadblocks, support them with incentives, and get out of their way, and they'll get it done. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Mike John, and I'm sure the odds were pretty small that there would be 2 people from the little bitty town of Huntsville next to each other on this podium. But anyway, our family operation is in Huntsville. We have a commercial cow-calf operation, and we tend to grow in the background and then feed those cattle out, and have done that since the early 90s, and have used AI technology when we could, and have dramatically seen the ability to change the output. And just to give you an example, the first, Mike Caston, I think, mentioned the Supreme Beef Program. We've sent a bunch of cattle through that the very first year, and I think our average carcass weight that on those days was about 660 with 9.5-inch ribeyes, and they were probably 100% choice and all of those good things, but they were little bitty devils. And the last group we fed, they were weighed 1485, had 16.5-inch ribeyes, and we're pretty efficient cattle. So you can make those changes. Along that same line, I totally agree in the ability to make progress and make change with genetics, and I think we have to do that. There are yield grade 1 prime carcasses out there that weigh 950 pounds when they're hanging, and that is the silver bell, and there are ways to get there, and I think we need to concentrate on that. I wrote down some terms that I hadn't heard today, just to make sure that they got brought up: culture, tradition, Bud Light. Oh, that's the wrong list. But I was an NCBA officer in the middle 2000s, and I got a chance to read the minutes of the very first cattlemen's organization that was formed nationally in like 1879. I don't remember, 1889, something like that. Anyway, a long time ago. And their primary item on their list was to keep government out of their business. in 1880. And if you look at the minutes from the 2006 NCBA convention, I can assure you that it was one of the top 3 items was to limit government intervention in their business. Having said that, I think we cannot overlook the value of having independent, science-based entities to help us manage what we do. And I think the Missouri Department of Agriculture in our state is that organization. And what I worry about, what I truly worry about, is that MDA doesn't have the strength or the relationship or the power given to it to make sure they can stand up with DNR and the Department of Conservation and other groups out there that are trying to put us out of business. And so I would hope that everybody in this room, Director Forsyth specifically, would know that it is important that we support those scientists and those science-based measures, because when we let ballot initiatives drive a direction that we have to go, we are in deep trouble. And so I think that's one of the ways to do that. I worry about the generational transfer. I manage the MFA Health Track program, which is a VAC 45 program. We do record keeping for people, and we validate those processes, vaccination and weaning, and those things that go into that process. And I probably deal with somewhere between 700 and 900 operations a year, and you can't imagine the number of those operations that are either struggling with generational transfer or that this is the dead end. This is the generation that is out of the business. I mean, it is phenomenal, the percentage of people that I run into with that. And I'm not entirely sure what the problem is there. Part of the problem is that there's an awful lot of young people, and I'll admit it, my kids are in that list, that don't want to do that. My granddad told me one time the only money he ever made raising cows, and he raised them all of his life, and he was probably the 7th or 8th generation in a row that did that. The only money he ever made was the appreciation on the value of his land. And these kids, you can graduate with a chemical engineering degree from the University of Missouri and get paid $100,000 a year. So it's a problem. It's something that we got to do. We got to make sure that our industry is attractive to those young people, and we have to make sure that government doesn't hinder the process of generational transfer like it does now. We have to get some help. We have to get some permanent relief from that and move forward so that we can get some young people in there. I also deal with a lot of operations out of the state and in the state, and it is hard to find hired labor. It's very difficult to find labor that knows anything about cows, how to take care of cows, how to feed cattle, how to look for sick cattle. And it's not just in this state. I've got family in the feedlot business, and it is their number one problem. It is by far their number one problem. We got to deal with those issues. But as far as adding value to cattle, I feel like that I help people do that every day. Just imagine that in today's market, with a $1.41 value of gain, that's calculated by LMIC and the beefbasis.com, $1.41, that means that for every pound you add to a calf, it's worth $1.41 for every pound. So you stop and think about putting 200 pounds on 1.5 million cattle in this state as the low-hanging fruit without any further investment in overhead. You don't have to buy any more cows, don't have to buy any more land, don't have to do any of those things. Just put 200 pounds, that's $300 million. That is a tremendous amount of money, and that is easily done. We've kept track of 500,000 calves that we've put through this program. I can tell you how to vaccinate them. I can tell you how to take care of the cows. I've kept records on all those things. I can give you a protocol that almost eliminates the risk of weaning and preconditioning those calves and adding a couple $100 a head in your pocket, and yet the number of people that do that is scarily small. And with the market signal, Justin, that we've seen this year on the price of ball and bull calves, they'll bring $1,200 or $1,300. And what people don't realize is when those prices are really, really, really high like that, it's also when that value of gain is really, really, really high. And so that we were sending the wrong signal on that. But anyway, those are my comments, and I very much appreciate the opportunity to be here.
Good afternoon. My name is Glenn Cope. I'm a 4th-generation cattle rancher in the southwest part of the state. We live about 45 minutes just west of Branson, so that's the type of terrain that I live in. So it's truly an honor for a hillbilly like me to be here and address a crowd like this. Appreciate the opportunity very much. I think it's a great idea for us to have this forum, Director. I'm extremely proud of the beef industry right now. I'm proud of Missouri cattle. Dr. Curley, he didn't say it while he was up here on this panel, but I heard him just last week. He said Missouri may not be the number one in the number of cattle in our country, but we're number one in the type of cattle that you would want to own. Did I get that right, Dr. Curley? And I think that's a very accurate way to put it. And I think there's two reasons for that, as has been mentioned several times. Certainly, we excel in genetics, and I think a lot of attribution of this should go back to Extension and the great job that they have done. I rode up with my Extension agent, Eldon Cole, up here today, and he's been in this business for a long time, and Extension has played a great part and a great role in encouraging producers from a long time ago to utilize EPDs in their bull selection, which we've done on our farm, and that's helped tremendously. Dr. Patterson, who's here as well, went around the state a number of years ago, and we were fortunate enough to be selected to in a program that encourages beef producers to use and utilize timed AI. Dr. Patterson, that's something that after you came, showed us how to synchronize our cows, and we can breed those cows all on the same day. That's something we've done every year since. So I think if you're looking at us, looking at somebody for a poster child, we might be it, because it's increased our genetics and the potential for us tremendously. And I say that to say this: we're not alone in that. You visit with several neighbors around; they've utilized that technology as well. I think the Missouri Cattlemen's Association, through their county meetings and that monthly meetings throughout the state, and bringing these companies in, that the genetics companies in, and educating producers about the technology that's out there, has attributed tremendously to why we're number one in the type of cattle that you would want to own. And so certainly we need to be proud of that. Another thing, number two, I think a great reason why we're number one in the type of cattle that you would want to own is because of the health benefits of a lot of our cattle, because of programs like Health Track that encourage producers to wean their calves for 45 days, make sure that they have proper vaccination shots, when they go out there, so that those cattle are more attractive to feeders, to purchasers, and that they know what they're getting and that they're going to get a healthy animal. Certainly something that's important, that's been important in our state. But I've never been more excited about our beef industry. And if you ask my dad, he's 63. I hate to use the word giddy, but it's almost like that, because who would have dreamed just a year ago that we would have feeder cattle north of $2? And the attitude that producers have towards our industry has changed tremendously. We all do what we love, and we love what we do, but certainly when we can be profitable and we can have some return, that certainly helps. And I've told people I likened this run up in the cattle market and current cattle prices to the difference between chipping away at your debt to actually getting up there and paying on it. And certainly that's been the case, and it's been a great change. But there is a downside, unfortunately, to these higher cattle prices, and that is, of course, as we all know, the difference when you walk up to your meat counter at your local grocery store and you look at the beef section. And my wife even complained a little bit about beef prices the other day, and I said, honey, do not complain about beef prices. And I said, you better not let anybody hear you complain about beef prices while you're standing there at the retail the meat counter. But that's one of the drawbacks for these high beef prices. And we've asked the question time and time again, when are we going to see some pushback from consumers? And when are they going to say that's enough? But yet that's yet to be determined, thankfully. And I think at the end of the day, we as producers need to do all that we can to promote our industry, to promote our product. And as a cattleman, I've always had appreciation for the great job that our Beef Checkoff does in promoting our product. And I've come to more of a realization of that in the last 4 years since I've been on the Missouri Beef Industry Council Board of Directors, got elected to that position, and serve as chairman of that board, which is a board of producers, elected by producers, that oversee the state portion of that of those checkoff dollars. And when you look back to the cow that sold Christmas in 2003, we all remember that day, and we're all concerned in the coming days after that what the beef market would do, what cattle prices would do. We were concerned. We were worried about a market crash, a demand crash for our product, and I think, and we didn't see that. And I think a significant amount of a role can be attributed to the Beef Industry Council, our checkoff dollars, and reassuring consumers that beef is safe. And going back to what was mentioned earlier and this morning, how the beef exports contribute roughly $400 to the value of a carcass. Certainly the beef checkoff, by contributing to U.S. Meat Export Federation, educating foreign consumers about the great product that we have, I think has been instrumental in that $400 value to each carcass. If you're familiar with MBIC, you'll know that, as I mentioned, $1 is checked off at the point of sale. 50 cents goes to national, 50 cents stays here in state, and which is overseen by the Beef Council Board, which there's a number of board members here with us today. And but a challenge that I think that we have faced in recent years in the Beef Council at the state level is declining revenue because of the declining cow herd, as we all know. Historically, if you look back at our revenue, it's been $1.4 million, $1.6 million. Our fiscal year of 2014, 2015, our projections for revenue will be about $1.2 million. So we've seen a declining revenue stream because of these lower cattle numbers in our state. And when you couple that with inflation, when the checkoff was started in 1987, $1 back in 1987 is worth only 48 cents today. So that's certainly a challenge because of inflation. And so myself and others in our industry are asking the question, is it time for an increase in the beef checkoff? And, back this past summer, Dr. Harry Kaiser with Cornell University did a study on the checkoff, and he found that for every $1 that's invested in the checkoff, $11.20 is returned to producers. And so I think I do that every day of the week and twice on Sunday, wouldn't you, Mike?
Amen.
In terms of return. And in recent months, we've seen producers in other states have voted to increase their state checkoff just at the state level. And Kentucky, Georgia, Ohio, and we can't let those Texans outpass us. They've done that as well. And Illinois will be voting on an increase here in the next few weeks. But in closing, real quick, I'd just like to say that I think a great way that we as an industry can increase beef demand, add value back to producers, is by increasing our influence on consumers, those who consume our product, and what a great product we have. We've been talking all day about the possibility of increasing feed capacity in our state. Well, as we all know, there's issues with public perception with feedlots. I mean, you just drive through Kansas, and there's some odor issues, and there's issues that would come about because of increased feeding capacity. And so certainly I think the checkoff has done a great job in promoting the positive influences, positive aspects of beef production. And I say positive, but it's truthful. We've got a great industry. We should be proud of our product, and we need to promote it every chance we get. And I'd just like to close. Recently, our Beef Council put together what we called a Pasture to Plate tour, where we had influencers in urban areas in our state, St. Louis, Kansas City, come together, and we put them on on a tour bus, folks like mommy bloggers and dietitians and grocery store owners, and we put them on a bus and we show them the whole gamut of beef production from the cow-calf side all the way. We took them by your operation there at Circle A and showed them how cattle are fed. And ultimately, we wound up in Kansas City and showed them, National Beef showed them how cattle are slaughtered. And so one of the positive things that came about from that is a lady that was a mommy blogger who's got about 40,000 followers, talked about her experience on this trip and talked about her disappointment and all the negative misconceptions about our industry. And she really had a lot of positive things to say. And I think those type of activities is something that we certainly need to continue. And I think it's very important. So thank you for your time.
Well, I'm Tammy Bartholomew, and I'm a totally different animal on this panel, and I'm not talking about my gender. I represent the very small producers, and my husband and I have a very small operation. We fit that state average, or a little bit actually below that. We're working towards building back up. We're both employed off the farm. I just recently retired as a 30-year veteran in ag education and FFA advisor, and have another employment now that I'm going to kind of bring into this discussion towards the end of my presentation. We started in Registered Angus, got very involved in the youth organization, the Junior Angus Associations on Missouri and the national levels. Had a daughter that got to sit and create and set as president of the first junior MCA board, and so have a lot of ties into the importance of the beef industry in the state of Missouri. Some of the questions that we were asked to address was just looking at the opportunities and the hurdles. And of course, when you're a small producer, we don't see that opportunity to feed out cattle. We're going to transfer that risk to somebody like Frank instead of feeding them out on our own. But one of the things that I've learned to do is try to look for some niche marketing, and that's what we really focused on. And it may be for years where we just sold a few replacement heifers to some local neighbors. I have raised bulls and sold to those individuals that tend to want to just raise them to that 350, 400 pound range, and so trying to sell them good genetics so that they can accelerate their growth, but at the same time, while I'm there with them, educate them on the importance of retaining them just a little bit longer. We have shown heifers and steers at the local, state, and national level. And at the point right now, besides selling some replacement heifers, we are selling some show animals. And thanks to the FCS, I'll do a little plug for them. Mr. Janis with the FCS program, I've got 2 young people that have bought heifers by using that program. And they do not have any beef presently. So we're trying to, I think it's really important to, as a small producer, to keep in contact with those other small producers and also try to find a way to open opportunity with individuals who may be interested in getting into the beef industry. We're first generation. My husband and I we've started from scratch, buying land, buying cattle, and it's been a struggle. But it's one of those things that we've learned how to try to focus on those opportunities. Because we do have outside employment income to be able to subsidize our living, that we've been able to play with the beef industry, so to speak. But we're at that point now as we're looking at sales, and I've also even done some beef sales. We've got a lot of individuals that's interested. You put the name Angus with beef, and they find out you raise Angus. Well, do you sell any beef? Well, yes, I'm inclined to do that. And so we've done some small feeding at that level, as long as I know, that I have the market there available. One of the things that we're doing now, though, of course, and economically, it makes sense to us that we were able to sell enough steers at the right price to be able to retain heifers. The other thing that we're looking at is that we're also noticing there's an elderly generation that, because of that transfer of that legacy, are struggling with that, but they're wanting to stay in the cattle business, but maybe not physically able to continue the day-to-day operations. And so we've been approached to take on some cattle for another individual that we have developed a relationship with over the last 15 years. And so I think there's some education, some opportunities there that we need to look at, because I do believe that there's a lot of young people in the industry that wants to get into the beef industry. They've been exposed to it. They may have had a grandfather that have raised beef. We've got to figure out a way to provide that opportunity for them to get in the industry. And so maybe if we could look at some programs that can marry marry these individuals. And I've heard of college kids that really want to be in beef business, but just financially cannot figure out how to do it. So those are some things that I would also recommend that we look at. Now, some mindsets that I quickly will talk about before I close here is that, as it was mentioned, we've have individuals that I think there's two mindsets. There is cattle producers and there's beef producers. And that's the way I've always taught my students. There's those individuals that they just want a live calf. They're going to wean that calf off and they're going to take it to the sale barn. And then there's those beef producers that's going to put value with genetics back into those herds. And no matter how big or how small, they're going to put that value back in, and they want to raise quality beef. And so even though they may not follow and get all the carcass data, even though that's a possibility, they're wanting to make sure that they're producing a quality product. And so that's first mindset, that we may need to work on some education there too. One of the last things I want to talk about is just what I'm doing now and hoping to expand on what Mike said about education as well. I just recently took a position as an information and education specialist for Seba Brother Farms, and they are a grain operation. But they do a lot of forward contracting with some local feedlots, small feedlots, and a very large swine operation that's in our county. And so one of the things that they do is that they farm and they butt right up to Kansas City. So what I'm trying to do is I'm starting to educate the youth that's in those inner city schools. And so one of the things I'm putting together is I'm having a high school that really is focused on career opportunities. And we have 30 students in this inner city school that's very interested in agriculture careers. And so I'm bringing them to the farms. And so we've set up a field day where they're going to start at the grain production farm, where their corn and soybean is raised. And then we're going to go to the swine operation and look at a feed mill. Then we're going to go to a large beef operation. We're going to feed them lunch. We're going to have people from industry come in and then talk to them about the other career opportunities in agriculture. There is an interest there. We just got to make sure that we communicate that. And so many times we talk to the choir. We speak to the choir, but we're not reaching out. And so because we have such a division now, and I don't want to use the word consumer ignorance. It's more like consumer distrust. We've got to figure out how to bridge that. So the way I look at it is if I take these 30 kids on these farms and they have 1,000 Facebook friends, and if I can get them to start posting positive things about agriculture, then we've got 30,000 new voters in the state of Missouri that's going to promote agriculture. And that would have made a big difference with the Right to Farm Amendment 1. Would have widened that margin. And so that's what we also need to focus on doing is we, besides just looking at creating that value for beef, which we got to do, but we've got to look at also the future of the industry, and that is with our young people. Thank you.
I'm Bob Thompson. We own and operate Glen Grove Farms near Rolla, Missouri. It's a registered Hereford seed stock operation. We started performance testing back in the early 70s with the University of Missouri and also our breed association. We also now do a lot of AI work. We do quite a bit of embryo work, all trying to improve the genetics of our cattle and the cattle we have out there for our customers. One of the assignments, I guess, that we had was to say something about our marketing plan. My marketing plan is to put as many white faces on all these black cattle you see around over the country. That's my marketing plan. We are in the business of selling performance tested bulls. We have an annual performance production sale, and a good number of cattle are sold private treaty. The other thing we do with our commercial cattle and have in the last few years is to retain ownership at least through the backgrounding stage. One of the things that was also asked of us is to look at short-term strategies and also longer-term strategies of how the state and so forth might be able to assist and things that we need to do to try to add more value both for producers and to the state. to me, and from my experience, the thing that right now that adds the most value in the short term is putting on more weight on Missouri cattle. You know, the backgrounding scenario where we're taking cattle from say 500 pounds to or 550 to 800 or whatever it is. The current market condition is that you can invest $1 in backgrounding and pick up $2 in 120 days. Now, we know that that condition doesn't exist. This is an unusual scenario. But still, one way I think over the long term, on average, that we can increase producer profits and add more economic value to the state is look to see how we can background more cattle in Missouri. And of course, backgrounding is also a precursor for finishing cattle or doing some type of a plant. So why not focus on that first and trying to have regional backgrounding, custom backgrounding lot facilities, if we can. So what incentives are needed to do that? No, I'm not sure. I think it's already been pointed out by Senator Barnett that there's a tax credit, I believe, at the state now for backgrounding or adding 200 pounds. But it's seriously underutilized. I don't know whether that's because it's not known or it isn't enough incentive or what it is, but I would suggest that we at least look at that and see how that might be tweaked to see how that might provide more incentive for people to retain ownership, at least through the backgrounding stage. There's a whole lot of things we could talk about there. The smaller producers probably may not be worth their while, or they don't have the facilities to do it at their place, so they need a custom facility to do that. The other thing, of course, there's some headwinds in terms of price volatility and that sort of thing, and some of that can be mitigated with some of the insurance products we've been talking about. The other thing, of course, that you might expect me to talk about, but I think is still important and is the driver of quality, is genetics. We've talked about it already today, and we do have some of the best genetics of any state in the Union. However, my sense is that the quality that we have and that's available in the seed stock business is being underutilized in the cattle population. I'll just give you an example. I don't know whether other purebred breeders have this same scenario, but the one question that I'm asked when somebody comes to look at a bull pretty consistently now is, what was his birth weight? Or what's his birth weight EPD? Very important. Nothing trumps a live calf. But there is also a lot more to it in terms of the quality, the performance traits, the carcass traits, efficiency, all the things that we've talked about. So what do we need to do to incent the use of better genetics in the general population of the cow herd? Without going into a lot of detail, I would just say that we might want to look at the Tennessee or Kentucky playbook, if we haven't already. You can find it on the internet at Tennessee Ag Enhancement, where incentives are provided for the purchase of genetically superior, highly documented, genetically superior cattle, bulls. Of course, there's more to it than that, but it's it is a way maybe that we might look at even improving the quality of our genetics even more. The good thing about being last on the program, just about everything has been talked about, so I won't go on and on. Efficiency is a big, big deal and will be a bigger deal. The work, as I said earlier, the work that Dr. Monty Curley has done, he was a pioneer. And we do have a good bit of intellectual power in our state that we can access that's already been done. And we also have a good bit of real good quality researchers in feed formulations. Those things need to be looked at. How do those become more widely used? What do we need to do? That's the reason I asked the question about whether we really need a feedlot scenario to test these feeds or the actual genetic value for efficiency. So those were just a couple of ideas that I thought of. I'm all for looking at the feasibility of doing some type of processing facility. And, you know, it takes somebody in a lot higher pay grade than I am to sort all that out. But I think we need to be cautious, very cautious, for reasons we've already heard here today. If we're looking at a niche market, that's one thing. If we're looking at commodity beef, my sense is that you would want to partner with one of the top four. That's not something I think that's very feasible for producer groups without partnering with one of the big boys. I'd sure a lot rather partner with them than compete against them. So I'll close with that. And have any questions?
Just give all of these guys a great hand. We're doing pretty good on time, but we want to allow a lot of questions during this period of time. If you have questions specifically to these panel members or pose it to several of them, if we have to extend that into the next panel just a few minutes, we are more than willing to do that. So I'm going to open up the floor now to questions, if anyone has any. Back here in the corner. We can always plan on you having a question, Mike, right? Yes.
First of all, good job to the panel. Proud to say that all 8 of those individuals are members of the Missouri Cattlemen's Association. That makes me a little giddy. Anyway, we heard from the last panelist from DNR say that it's easy to get a permit in the state of Missouri, and he's a friend, I trust him, and that is true. But DNR is not the problem. The problem is the Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, and when you build it, they will come. And we've seen that happen in Iowa, Nebraska, and we've seen that in Kansas, where they have threatened to pull away the delegated authorities to those DNRs if they do not become more stringent when we increase our feeding sector, which we support. We think we do need to be feeding more cattle. But at the same time, the Environmental Protection Agency is, in my opinion, has raised regulatory war on the cattle industry through waters of the United States, trying to regulate every drop of water in this country, and have been very difficult to work with. So that my question, the first question is my question to you, would you be willing to expand or start feeding cattle in the state of Missouri under this current regulatory environment? That's the first question. Second question, on the Glenn and Tammy both did a great job talking about youth and the importance of livestock educators and specialists. And what we've seen in the last 5 years is a decrease of about 10 to 15% of our livestock specialists throughout the state, like Mr. Eldon Cole that you referenced, Glenn. And we've also seen revenue shortfalls at the university for extension. We've seen difficulties there, and they're being forced to raise their own revenue now. And I find that pretty frightening, and would like to here, we hear all this great technology from Dr. Taylor and from others, but how do we get that information out if we continue cutting these specialists? So 2 questions. 1 on the regulations and 2 on the extension side.
All right, let's deal with the regulations first. Justin.
Just real quickly, I do have a little experience with DNR, who was a department that was actually very helpful trying to get us in compliance for the EPA regulations at our livestock auction in Boonville, or livestock auction in Bowling Green. And here's the most distressing thing that everybody needs to be aware of. Our experience there is the 3 young guys, we went up there 15 years ago when we bought that business. And all of a sudden, we fell into a category called a CAFO, which was kind of a new experience for me. And before it was over, I was not allowed to talk to anyone from the government because they were afraid of some kind of an assault lawsuit or something. But here's our experience. We buy this business, we borrow money to do it, we get on the radar, and we are inspected, and something is out of compliance. And the word that I want everyone to be aware of is potential. We had no complaints, no odor complaints, no runoff complaints. They tested the water all around us. There was no runoff. There was no trace of anything coming off our facility. But because of the potential for runoff, we were required to build a building over all our outside pens. A couple $100,000. We do that, get that done. Well, they come back. We had been composting on 17 acres. All of a sudden, we couldn't do that. So we have to buy a truck, $55,000 to haul the manure. And then instead of composting, we have to have that under roof, all our manure under roof, okay, since we're a CAFO, because of the potential for runoff, okay? Next thing that we're out of compliance with, we get that solved, another $100,000. All of this didn't come at once. So what they say is either you comply or you close. And that's all there is to it. So we spend the money again. The next issue was, I believe we were bringing hay from big round bales of hay. You guys all have them. Well, if you're a CAFO, that is feedstuffs. And you're not allowed to store feedstuffs outside because of the potential for runoff. So there's another $50,000 or $100,000. This is 12 years ago, and you can tell it still has an effect on me. I hope I'm sharing. This is proprietary information. I hope my partners who are watching live don't. The business cost us $500,000. To comply cost us $550,000. And once you get on the radar, it's not just the EPA. Before that year was over, we had 6 government agencies come to check on us to see if we were in compliance. The last one was some obscure USDA, something out of St. Louis called the Poultry Something and Egg Division of the USDA. They walked into our sale on sale day on a Friday, and they were going to close our restaurant unless we could prove that the eggs that we were serving were purchased at a USDA inspected eggs from a grocery store and not farm eggs. They were going to walk in and close us. So we were guilty first, and we had to prove our innocence. Now, the trouble with the EPA is they are beyond. There's whatever their decision is, that's all there is to it. You can't go to your senator, you can't go to the president. Whatever they say is the way it is. And before anybody goes and starts building buildings, and before, if I was an extension agent, before I had a customer or a person, especially a young person, we need to get that solved, because the potential, think about the unlimited problem that word causes. And this, like I said, this is 12 years ago, and it still works on me. Now, the flip side of this is, After the sixth visit from a government agency, a guy walked in carrying a little satchel one day with a coat and tie, and I met him in the hallway, and I looked at him. He says, "Is one of the owners here?" And I looked at him with this reaction, and I said, "How much is this going to cost?" My little brother, who is wiser and more patient and calmer, grabbed me and shuffled me out the door. The poor guy was only wanting to talk to us about insurance.
Thank God.
So that's, as far as the EPA and building buildings, that is probably the number one problem we have with everything we talk about. And DNR, like I said, was very helpful to us. But the end was when my brother wrote a letter to the governor, who was Mr. Blunt at the time, and basically said, there is no more money. What do you want us to do?
All right. Anybody else want to answer talking about Mike's expansion? Let's move on to youth and extension. Right, Mike? You want to touch on that? Does anybody want to talk? Glenn or Tammy?
Well, one of the other factors that we're facing is also in ag education is that we're finding less and less young people coming out into that profession. And a lot of it has to do with, it's not a 9-to-5 job by any means. There's a lot of 12-hour days, if not longer. Salary may factor in, but then also I'm finding out in education, and maybe this is because I'm on the older end of it, is that we are having more and more ag educators that are coming into profession that really does not have an agricultural background. So that's, I feel like, is causing some issues. But at the same token, when you look at the student body, when I started teaching, out of 80 students, I'd have 30 of them that would have beef cattle. And when I retired in May, I had 3. So the profile of the students is changing as well. So, I think that's going to be a factor. And I'm going to go back for just a moment, talk about zoning. Just as a funny story, but last year when I was out in blowing snow trying to save a cow who decided to drop not one but twins in the middle of it and 10 days early by myself, I thought, well, feeding cattle would be the way to go. I won't have to worry about this. And actually looked into it, but our county zoning regulations are so stiff we could not even go there. There was not even a way to even start. So just to factor that in as well.
Jim?
Yeah, I'd like to approach the youth part of this thing. The most exciting thing that we did in this past year, Keith Stevens sitting right over here and myself worked with Missouri State to form a youth organization that is wholly a self-standing affiliate that has a board seat, has votes, does everything a normal affiliate would do, but it's all made up of students. I've been around this industry. Well, actually, I'm 4th generation or 5th generation. But I've been involved in organizational parts of the industry for in excess of 40 years. Almost without fail, every meeting I've attended, the subject has come up, what do we do to attract young people? This thing fell in our lap, didn't it, Keith? They were interested. Keith and I made several meetings with this group of young people. Literally in 8 weeks, they had 53 members. They were on fire. They're all made up of students with ag majors. And you know what? They're just as much on fire this year. This makes us feel good to go be with these young people because we know they're the future of our industry. If any of you have children, grandchildren that are attending classes in any college in the state and they're not a member of a group like this, call them and say, you know what, why don't you guys call Missouri Cattlemen and get them to come down and help you form a group of young cattlemen. We will be there. Guys, this is how we create what's going to carry this on after we're gone.
Thanks, Jim. And it's also important as we work in these college campuses today, where we see opportunities to start touching the millennial market, which is so important to us, is the future as beef consumers. Other questions? Right over here.
Mark, Bill Reibold. I'm a dairy farmer, but I'm a member of the Cattlemen's Association and a member of the Missouri Legislature, and I chair Ag Policy Committee in the Missouri House. Appreciate all of you gentlemen. You have hands-on experience, and I appreciate that because I've been in the business and pulling calves in the snow and all that kind of good stuff. But I just wanted, by way of comment, we are going to get some good legislation passed. Our beef checkoff has been filed. I filed it. I think it will go through. The governor's on board with it. Our dairy bill, the governor's on board with it, and I filed it. And our weight limits bill, the gentleman on the end, we need to get that done, 85.5, and I think we can get all three of those done this year. It's a pleasure to be here. You've got me excited and fired up, and the idea, I think, is very important that we all need to be active. And if I learned anything this summer on the right to farm bill, it was that there is so much ignorance out around our state. So many people need to be educated and need to be informed. And when we do that, I've been all around the state, when we sit down and talk to these people, common sense is still a main issue that we're going to have to deal with. But hopefully we can do that. And thank you. And I want to thank the governor as well as Director Fordyce for putting this together. It's been very informative to me. Thank you very much.
Okay, we've got another question over here, I think.
Yeah, I'm Dave Patterson. I'm in the Division of Animal Sciences. I'm a reproductive physiologist, biologist, and I'd like to follow up with Mike's question relative to technology transfer and the need for it. His comment relative to budget cuts and the revenue generation expectation that campus faculty as well as our field staff are now being faced with is no small deal. And if there is an opportunity from stemming from this summit to maintain our educational infrastructure for the beef industry in Missouri, I would really appeal to that need. The reason for that is that I think some of the statistics that have been quoted, highlighting Missouri's leadership relative to beef and beef production nationally, as well as in some cases globally, stems from our educational infrastructure. All you have to do is cross state lines and go to Illinois, Iowa, even Kansas in some respects, and Arkansas, and compare their extension systems to ours, and there is no comparison. I grew up on a ranch in Montana, and I work, as many of you know, in the area of timed artificial insemination. When I go home and visit with neighboring ranches up there, they talk about poke and hope. They don't really realize that it can be accomplished with the success rates that we're seeing here in Missouri. So if we don't step up and maintain that educational infrastructure in our state, given the fact we have somewhere between 50 and 60,000 producers, it's not like many of our other livestock commodities. This is the show me state. When, as Glenn mentioned, we worked with 73 farms in Missouri, time bred 7,000 cows, and we demonstrated to herds across the state that the technology works. If we don't maintain that ability to transfer the technology and the really exciting, cool stuff that Taylor's Lab's working on, we can have all the best technology in the world, but unless we figure out a mechanism to support the transfer of it, it's really not going to do us very much good. So if there is an opportunity, again, coming from this summit to support maintenance of our educational infrastructure, I sure hope we can figure out a way to do that.
Thank you. We've got a question right here.
I'm Paul Hostetler from Buffalo, Missouri, the building and feed sales. We do building and we do feed, and we do some of the specialty non-GMO feeds also. So we're involved in some of these mom-and-pop operations, and some are bigger and just smaller than the mom-and-pop. And as a beef feed producer, building producer, I see a lot of customers, and there's a lot of potential out there. And also we're involved with poultry. providing poultry buildings, and there's this right now on the poultry. There's this cage-free layer thing that's kind of on the craze right now, and if we take the marketing, I guess the ways kind of look at how they're marketing, because they're marketing cage-free eggs, they're marketing happy egg. I mean, literally, if you look at a case, a dozen case egg. You'll see it in some markets. I don't know where they go. I don't keep track of where all they market their eggs, but they market as happy egg. They market it. They use some advertising strategics that I think we need to look at, and they're pretty entrepreneurial. We got 4 guys there up here in Sedalia, Missouri. They put an egg packing plant in. I mean, they're doing the farmer thing. They're not, they're doing anywhere from 3,500 to 25,000 birds, and it's basically in Missouri. They're doing some outside of Missouri. But these guys have started in Missouri, and they're expanding all over Missouri right now. They're doing, one barn per farm, and a lot of young guys going in. And we've got a banker that's working with a lot of them. And I think if we use some of the marketing ways that they use, like one guy mentioned, an end product. We need to label that end product. And if we start marketing Missouri beef, and we have a reason why it's better. I think it's going to take all phases of people in the business. Some are going to be your cow-calf guys. They're like the pullet raisers in the poultry business. Some are like the egg layers, the feeder guys. And it's going to take the salesman. It's going to take Mr. John Woods, like he's got his marketing thing. And it's not going to be fast. It's going to be persistent. And we're going to have to stay on it. We're going to have to work with it, whether we partner up with one of the big boys. We partner up with John. I think we're going to have to, some people are going to have to move ahead with it. I don't know. I'm not the right guy. I don't have the right education to do it. But there's a world of potential. We got the purebred breeders. We got everybody. I mean, we got the feed guys. We got the cow-calf guys. We got the hoop guys. So I just want to encourage everybody. I mean, we got to stay on this. We got to keep up with it.
Appreciate your comments. I appreciate Dr. Sexton, and then we'll go to Mr. Mankin.
I have a question for Nick, Mike, and Bob, I guess. Bob, you brought up the incentive program that Kentucky and Tennessee had, and with family in Kentucky, I would suggest they would tell you that just increased the price of a bull by $500. And so I guess I'm curious how we would prevent something like that. And then for Mike and Nick, as more of a value, like more of a capitalistic approach, perhaps, in terms of adding incentives from the business side as opposed to the government. Do you see that as a more successful model, or how you see that working in Health Track and Circle A's model?
Well, Justin, is this on? Okay. I'm not an expert on what they're doing in Kentucky and Tennessee. I do know that this incentive exists. I think they approached it from a cost sharing scenario, and they used tobacco settlement money initially to start it. We'd obviously have to have a different approach, something in whatever, state tax credits or something. But I understand where you're coming from. It may have that effect of increasing the price of a bull, but that's really not so much where I'm coming from on it. It's the utilization of better genetics. And all this quality thing we're talking about, to me, that's where it all starts. You've got to have the right genetics. And we have to have an awareness. There's a tremendous educational component of this, and I'm not saying we haven't done a good job. I think the University Extension and so forth has done a good job, but we need to keep hammering on it, and maybe there is an incentive, an additional incentive needed for people to commercial producers to buy these really documented genetically superior bulls.
Okay, Bob. Mike, make a comment, and then we'll go to Mark.
Well, I want to address the incentive issue, and I think Dr. Taylor hit it maybe on the head when he said there's an awful lot of producers that aren't in the business, they're not motivated by profit, because in the 15 years I've been doing this Health Track program, I've never seen more incentive to wean and vaccinate and add weight to calves than there is this year. And as a matter of fact, there's only been 2 years, I'm pretty sure 2004 and 2008, when that wasn't possible, and that was 2008 was the price of corn, and 2004 was a crash in the feeder market. So I'm sure some of you remember those days. But for the most part, I believe that the incentive is there, and it is stronger than it has ever been. And as a matter of fact, we have been working really hard at trying to accumulate through data management. We collect a lot of data on preconditioning. So in other words, I can tell you what the risk is if you give 2 rounds of shots pre-weaning, or if you give the first round at weaning. I can tell you how much difference there is in the risk of disease based on those processes. I can tell you that if you don't vaccinate cows with a modified live pre-breeding, it limits the ability for you to take advantage of those things. I mean, there's an awful lot of management practices out there that are not difficult. I know guys that wean calves with a single strand of polyware, so they don't have to build any fancy facilities. I mean, there is an answer, and there is a best management practice for all of those things, and yet the percentage of people that do all of those things is very, very small. So I'm not saying people are stupid, and I'm not saying people are lazy. I just don't think that we have communicated maybe the opportunity that is out there right now. And just as far as I'm concerned, I've never seen an incentive to invest in genetics and technology like there is out there right now already through the market.
All right, let's have one more question back here with Mark Mankin, and then I know we want to ask more, but we need to move on.
Hi, Mark Mankin. Frank, Nick, could you tell us why you finished cattle in Missouri? And if that answer happens to be to make money, do you think you can make more money by processing cattle in Missouri?
Besides just a small number of cattle, we don't finish too many cattle in Missouri. We send most cattle out of the state. Do I think the opportunity would be here? The reason I do it is to make more money. And I think that with the genetics that we've added in, we've seen that value added, and we're going to reap the benefit from those cattle by owning them all the way to the rail. I think that the opportunity to do that, if it was here in Missouri, I would take advantage of that even quicker. I would try to feed more cattle here in Missouri. I'd try to look for quality cattle to feed in Missouri, and I'd probably change my operation from only being a backgrounding operation to also being a feeding operation.
We're kind of in the same boat. I mean, we feel we produce value-added genetics and that somebody's going to capture that value somewhere down the chain, whether it's for us or our customers. So we want to be the ones to capture as much of that value as we can. So that's why we finish cattle. Would we go on through the processing phase? Yeah, if it was easy to do. I mean, we've explored opportunities to do so. Kind of the scale that we do it on is kind of that medium scale. We can't really use a very small packing plant, and we don't really have enough to help with a really large packing plant. So we're kind of caught in between where it's difficult to do here in Missouri at the present time. So, any chance we have to recapture that value and move further down the chain where somebody else is going to be taking advantage of that at some point, we'd love to be the ones to take advantage of that.
All right, let's give everyone a big hand for this presentation.